This is Mike Cagley, and I'm doing heat checks and Hail Marys. It's a new feature that I'm doing just to talk a little bit about sports and some things that interest me. I'm a big guy for sci fi. I like a multitude of sports, particularly ones that we don't talk about as much here, such as boxing. I enjoy pro wrestling, which everybody makes fun of me for. Big guy in comic books, movies, you name it. So we'll be talking about some things like that. So let's get to the first episode of Mike Kegley's Heat Checks and Hail Marys. It's been a crazy time for those people who enjoy Illini sports. We've seen the football team land two critical players in the portal. You had Zachary Franklin, the UTSA via Old Miss wide receiver. We had Terrence Brooks out of Texas. And Braden Trimble, the wide receiver, stayed at home in Illinois. This isn't your father's Brett Bielema. Illini football has improved their recruiting results, and they now must maintain that player development reputation. Now, the good thing for Illinois fans is this is a strength of the staff, but seeing this aggressiveness on the recruiting trail is something that many did not anticipate. Over on the men's basketball side, the rebuilding of the roster is essentially complete. They added Will Riley to the team. This was a huge win, as Riley's electric EYBL performance meant that the Illini had to beat out the likes of Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, and Kentucky. And realistically, when you're in a situation like that, you look at a guy, 5-star as a 2025, 4-star as a 2024. But when you beat out Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, and Kentucky, that means an awful lot. And that's how we kind of judge some of the wins in recruiting, is not only where their star ratings are, but who else is interested and who else is making a run at them. When you consider the streak that the Illini have been on over the last few years, you had Io, Kofi, Terrence Shannon Jr., even a guy like Marcus Domask, and even if you look at Coleman Hawkins, they find their way to suit up for Illinois. They get better, and they have really built a foundation for the program. Future's even brighter when you consider that Riley, Boswell, Morez Johnson, Kasparis, Tomislav, White, Booth, all these guys are on campus and playing. Then you add in that Jeremiah Fears is already committed. And then other USA basketball players like Jasper Johnson are kicking the tires on the program. Take all these things together, and the Illini are really approaching a new high in basketball recruiting. It's fun to watch. And folks, from somebody who was here in the 80s and then here during the Self Weber time, you have to appreciate this moment. You have to step back and you have to just kind of take it all in. Today was a huge day. So, what does Will Riley really mean? Well, I think there's two big things that make this a big deal. First off, as a player, he is a 6'8" wing, but he also proved in AAU that he can thrive as the 1 or 2 guard as well. He can bring the ball up, although we'll see that Big Ten coaches will try to find a way to challenge him. He can run the high ball screen game very well, not just in scoring, because a lot of the good players, they can score off of this, but he's good at passing the ball. He lets the defense dictate what he does. That puts him ahead of many players. And his shot is a bit unorthodox, but he has a quick release, and he can shoot not just the three, but the deep three. He's going to be a true contributor on the floor, and at 6'8", he is a differentiator. But let's look at him as an example of what could be. That's the second thing I think he's really going to be important at. Will Riley shows high school players across the country that Illinois is a spot that elite players can now categorize as a destination. Of course, there's no guarantee in basketball or athletics in general. Some scouts have predicted he could be a one-and-done type player. We'll see on that. But you do have Riley and Morez Johnson coming in this year, and Riley is acknowledged as an NBA-level talent, and that's the type of player that Brad Underwood wants to attract to Illinois with his exciting brand of up-and-down basketball. And when Illinois beats out Kentucky, it's kind of a big deal. So Riley is going to be a big component of future high school recruiting. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see just what he does with strength and conditioning coach Adam Fletcher to help him out. We've seen pictures of 1 month with Kylan Boswell. What could 4 or 5 months do by next November? Well, we'll all stay tuned. The second heat check that I want to talk about is times of high change offer an opportunity for the Illini to disrupt the status quo in college sports. With elements like conference realignment, name and image and likeness rules, the transfer portal, NCAA lawsuits, increasing television money, this represents the opportunity for Illinois to upset the status quo in the Big Ten and college sports overall. The Illini are led by an athletic director, Josh Whitman, that sees this as a time of gargantuan change. And at that time, the Illini can make games. This is no time to be a turtle, go into the shell. You don't want to turtle shell this situation. You don't want to hide until the winds of change have died down and then kind of see how things look. As things change, the football program and the men's basketball program must be healthy to fund the athletic department and to anchor the Illini future in the Big Ten. To fail to compete in these two sports might leave the Illini on the wrong side of a red line if further consolidation was to continue. You want to make sure if you go down the ledger, you want Illinois to be above that red line. You don't want them to be below it. And the football and basketball programs have to be healthy. Josh Whitman recently mentioned there's no guarantees, even for founding members of the Big Ten. The old days of running a program that's in the black, staying away from crossing the NCAA is competitive without any clear definition of what competitive means. Those days, the Ron Gunther days, those days, they're no longer good enough. Illinois must have head coaches who plan to win and, more importantly, can implement their plans successfully. Whitman may have got lucky. I don't know, but he picked a good time to invest in facilities, i.e., before this hyper change era. Now that the football and basketball teams are in excellent facility, the athletic department won't have to worry about paying to catch up in those areas at a time when they have to figure out, how do we get $22 million a year in revenue that we have to share with players? That's coming soon, and there's no pot of money for that. This is definitely a good time to not be worried about catching up in facilities. Josh Whitman's decision to put the new wrestling facility on hold is a good one. It supports the goal of winning in the key sports of football, basketball. Now, I know members of the wrestling program might want to put that up for debate, but the Illini cannot afford to be distracted from finding a way to win in football and basketball. Put the wrestling facility on hold. Great decision in this new college sports landscape. Brad Underwood has resurrected the basketball program from a very dark place, at least for the Illini program. And he has demonstrated that being aggressive and finding a way to acquire talent can work, even at Illinois. The basketball program is moving up in the basketball pecking order, and that's an encouraging sign, one that we haven't seen since the Self-Weber era. And I would argue that even as things peaked in the Weber era, without Bill Self, that rise was hindered. I think Brad Underwood is going to make that rise happen. We're also seeing in the Smith Center that Brett Bielema and his recruiting results are getting better as well. And that's a good thing because football has to be healthy. But more importantly, Josh Whitman appears to be heavily involved in planning with his coaches and pushing his coaches to find a way to make a difference by winning. That's a refreshing change. No more is the athletic director, at least under his tenure, providing excuses as to why losing is okay. Now, nothing happens overnight, but this is a massive culture change. It's one of the hardest changes to pull off. I lived in Madison from 90 to 95, and I had to watch Barry Alvarez and Pat Richter turn a horrible athletic program into a machine. And I can kind of see the same thing going on with Josh Whitman, Brad Underwood, and Brett Bielema. Now we're going to take a little bit of a change here. Heat check number 3. We're going to talk about binge watching. I have 2 shows that I've really enjoyed recently. One is Apple TV's Dark Matter, and the other is shockingly Disney's The Acolyte. Now, Dark Matter has been a fantastic watch for the first 6 or so episodes. It stars Joel Edgerton as Jason Dessen. He's a high school teacher who chose to marry his pregnant girlfriend, played by the attractive Jennifer Connelly, 16 years ago, instead of focusing on becoming an Elon Musk style tech entrepreneur. Well, you're thinking this is a pretty boring show, and you'd be right. But the problem is an alternate reality version of Jason, let's call him Jason number 2, has found a way to travel to this happily married reality because he isn't happy with being a lonely billionaire who never married and ultimately lost his girlfriend. So this billionaire uses the technology that he focused on and developed to travel to Jason number 1's reality, kidnap him, and switch places. Essentially, Jason number 2 stole Jason number 1's wife and life. This was a great show until multiple Jasons started showing up because they started talking about how every choice spawns a different reality. And I'll be honest with you, I love this show, but now I can't tell which Jason is which. So when there's a Jason on the screen, I'm guessing is, well, this is 1, is this 2, is this 3 or 7? Who knows? They dress the same. They act the same because they're almost the same person. Overall, it's been an entertaining show, but in the end, Jason number 1 could win and live life happily ever after, or another Jason could win, or Jason number 2 could steal the life. And I would actually depend upon the show to clarify what happened because they all look the same to me. Kind of ironic. But we'll see how the show wraps up. Maybe they've got a way to make this work out. It was a fantastic show for the first 6 episodes, and then it just got really, really confusing. So let me know what you think on this particular show. Now I'm going to pivot to The Acolyte, the latest Star Wars television show. But to really put this in perspective for you, I have to tell you 3 things. One is I loved Star Wars as a kid. It came out in 1977. I was born in 1967. I was the perfect age to fall right into Star Wars. I also have the collector gene. So it's hard for me not to watch all the live action shows and movies. I just feel I have to, no matter how badly reviewed they are. My wife hates this, but she's learned to live with it. And I haven't truly loved an entire Star Wars show or movie since The Empire Strikes Back. Really, maybe with the exception of Rogue One, which I really, really liked. So I didn't expect to really enjoy The Acolyte. I just kind of turned it on and just said, well, that's what I do is I watch live action Star Wars. I've watched the first 4 episodes and it's been shockingly good. Now, got to be honest with you. This doesn't mean that our friends at Disney won't find a way to make me angry that I watch these episodes by providing a bad ending or some sort of nonsensical plot twist. But for now, after 4 episodes, it's been entertaining. Now, I've read online how woke this show is. I'm not really seeing it. The offending part seems to be a community of female Force users who figure out how to create life and have a child without a male. Okay, I'm not saying that's great, but this doesn't offend me any more than Anakin being a forced spawned person who was created by Emperor Palpatine's master and his predecessor, Darth Plagueis. I don't know. I think that both ideas are kind of dumb, that you don't have to have 2 people to reproduce, but who am I to criticize that? And the whole virgin birth offspring, that's not very original. Why a bunch of women doing it is woke while nobody complained about two old men executing the same plan mystifies me. But again, I think overall, I think many people are reacting to headlines, they're reacting to tweets or somebody on the radio who's trying to get them fired up without watching the actual show. I have to admit, I'm semi shocked that I liked a Star Wars show. It's been a long time. I didn't think that would happen, particularly after the Boba Fett series, which effectively destroyed one of the coolest characters of my youth. Compared to that, the Acolyte is looking really good. Of course, I am kind of waiting for the whole show to come crashing down around me, but for now, it's been a fun ride. I guess watching Disney shows is like living an Indiana Jones adventure. I've got the golden idol in my hand. I'm just trying to see where the boulder is going to come from. Thanks for watching or listening to the show. We'll be back later in the week. Have a great day.